FDA is now in the business of approving drugs by not following the law, which requires that manufacturers prove with substantial evidence from adequate controlled trials that drugs are safe and effective. What this has led to is kind of a return to snake oils. The ads look different, but look at the number of indications that these so-called antidepressants have been approved for, but that's not all. Look at the off-label. And this list is not complete. This list is included in the FDA review, which indicates that the FDA is fully aware that the drugs are being misused, used for indications that they have either not been tested in or that they've been tested and proven not effective and unsafe, but those results are in some coffer. German regulators warned about the increased suicides in Prozac. FDA did not warn when they approved the drug. Indeed, FDA did not listen to their own safety officer. Dr. David Graham in 1990 reviewed Eli Lilly's suicidality data, and he found increased risk of suicide. In fact, he also said, quote, reporting rates do not translate into incidence rates because there's a substantial underreporting of events. He found 76 out of 97 suicides unreported by Lilly in their data analysis. Whoops, how do I return? Well, FDA's analysis is, of course, long overdue, but it raises far more questions than it answers. For example, this statement is in the report. What it says is that essentially the companies negotiated with FDA what they would send and what they would not send. That's not science. Now, what about the lost suicides, the Disappearing Act? In 2005, the UK analyzed the data sent to it by these same companies, same trials, and the data set was for 40,000. They found 16 suicides and 172 episodes of self-harm, which means attempts. Now we have the FDA looking at a data set of 100,000. And lo and behold, there are only 8 suicides and 133 attempts. Well, what happened to 8 suicides and 39 attempts? Zoloft suicides, in the report, FDA gives Zoloft a very clean bill of health compared to the other drugs. But again, when we look at the British review of the data set 7,169, there were 4 suicides and 20 attempts. By the time the FDA gets through with it, well, as you see, there are only some 219 difference in the data set, no suicides and 7 attempts. Where are they? One way that the FDA did this is by eliminating people from the very period when patients are at greatest risk. One slide here is out, but what they did is allow only, they instructed the companies to send them only adverse events that occurred one day after randomization, after the trial was actually evaluated. In other words, when the trial ended and people were taken off the drug, they did not want to know what occurred then. Yet the FDA's own label says that's a period of very high risk when there are any changes. Now, I'd like to touch on the claim that there's no treatment effect. As you see, in the under 25 age group, there's a 2.30 relative risk. 45 to 54, that relative risk is 2.29. And if you take 45 to 64, it's still 175. Now, how can a twofold risk be considered no treatment effect? This is how it looks on a graph. Notice the red is the under 25, the 45 to 54 is the yellow. It's almost identical. But there's a trick, there's an argument, and that is called statistical significance. I'd like to touch on that. This is a major smokescreen behind which the public is being told there's no statistical significance, there's no scientific evidence of harm. Oh, yes, there is. Woody is not the only one. What I'd like to read to you from is real authorities in clinical trial, the conduct of clinical trials, and that's the Consolidated Standards Reporting Trials. The difference between statistical significance and clinical importance should always be borne in mind. Authors should particularly avoid the common error of interpreting non-significant results as indicating equivalence of interventions, in other words, placebo and drug. The confidence interval provides valuable insight into whether the trial result is compatible with a clinically important effect, regardless of the p-value. In other words, yes, it isn't proven absolutely, but the fact that the FDA has created this very public health hazard by insisting that they want complete certainty of evidence of a hazard is absolutely scientifically impossible, and they know it. The main reason you're not getting this statistical significance is that the trials are too small. When enough people would be on them, then they would be significant, but that would probably have to wait another 20 years. Well, we don't have them. So what we want is, if there is any uncertainty about a hazard such as serious as what we're talking about, the warning should apply to all ages and all indications. Thank you.